Hey there, welcome to a new album, and today we have another series like this prog, math rock, prog, metal type thing, with Widek, Journey to the Stars, which is another YouTube recommendation. YouTube loves recommending me prog like albums, like math rock prog albums type thing, right? So yeah, it's another one of those. I must say though, comparatively speaking to every single one I've done, I think this has to be like one of the closest to Pliny. Actually, I keep comparing shit to Pliny because, I mean, look, fucking, it's really good. It's really good, right? So Pliny tends to have a very, to me, high bar when it comes to this type of music, right? So yeah, ironically, guess what? Fucking Pliny does feature in one of the tracks of this album. This album has 12 tracks and it's around like 40-ish, 45 minutes, something along those lines. Which, I mean, all of these albums are at this point. You should already know, like, they all are pretty similar in that regard. And that's something that, unfortunately, at this point, I've started to, like, it sort of, I guess, roadblock or a sort of wall, is that they kind of all sound the same. Like, there isn't much of a distinction. Like, it sounds good, sure, and it's definitely, like, good to listen to, you definitely have a lot of fun, but at the same time they do start to blend together, which I find very interesting with Pliny. To me, like, even though he does sort of do this type of music, he's very distinct in what he does. Like, his sound is very distinct primarily because of his composition, because his composition is very unique, right? His composition actually has progression to it and everything. It's not just a song that sounds nice with nice instruments type thing, right? So I, personally, that's kind of why I prefer him and why I think these, especially his EPs, had so much impact in me, or on me, I guess, right? Because outside of him, everyone else kind of does feel the same. Now, again, as I mentioned, this is definitely way closer to Pliny than every other type of prog math rock thing that I've covered in the past few days, especially, right? And like, I mean, not every single one of them was necessarily like this. Earthside, for example, was a bit more special and whatnot. But yes, a lot of them tend to sort of end up sounding the same. Although this one was definitely closer to Pliny, and especially because a lot of the songs do have a lot more diversity to it. Some songs were heavier, some songs were a bit more toned down, more focused on the rock side of things. Some songs even had some more atmospheric moments. For example, I know that, for example, Pillars of Creation was sort of this ambient track, right? Which is actually really nice. The last song, Ion or Eon, I guess, essentially singing as well, right? Which no other track on the album does have singing. So and that's actually something that I find interesting. There's a lot of features on the album. So a lot of these albums tend to have a lot of features, I guess, from other people of the same genre, which is, I guess, what also contributes to them sounding somewhat the same, right? But yeah, I mean, there is definitely a certain diversity here, and perhaps that's why I actually enjoyed it more than I did other albums of the genre, I would say, right? As much as it does kind of start blending everything together, in terms of standing out, I think this is the one that stood out the most, outside of like perhaps Earthside, which Earthside was really like the album, I think, that despite being sort of the genre, it was more, to me, closer to like Age of Aquarius, for example, than it is to Pliny or anything like that, right? So yeah, that one aside, this is probably like the most diverse, outside of Pliny, obviously, right? So on that regard, I think the album does a good job, right? Now, outside of that, yeah, to a certain degree, look, I really enjoy definitely the sounds and everything, and I do think that it does a better job than other albums in the genre. But at the same time, I do wish that sort of like narrative style that Pliny has. Because I think that especially here, there's definitely sort of a thematic, like a space thematic. I think that I don't know why people in the genre just love like space and stuff like that, right? Which actually, speaking of, the album art is actually really good. I don't know why the album art of these types of albums are always like really nice for some reason, right? They're always they look good, like aesthetically speaking, you know, they're very pleasing. So yeah, but essentially they also sort of have this theme, and this album especially has this, you know, space theme going on, and it does it decently well, I would say. But again, like you're still sort of lacking a narrative. Like I feel that a lot of the songs, some of them have a bit more time to breathe and everything, some are more toned down and there is a certain diversity, but I don't think that diversity exists because of a narrative. I think that diversity exists because it sounds nice, right? So I think that that's sort of one of the biggest issues that the album tends to have. So yeah, as a whole, I just think that, you know, like the I don't think I'm gonna say that. I might regret that. But yes, as a whole, I do think that the genre does tend to stick a bit together, and I think that this album does end up falling on that, you know, perhaps, you know, it's a fucking, what's the word? I'm just forgetting words now. But it falls under like that sort of, you know, report or bin or whatever the fuck, container, I guess, right? So, I mean, I get it. A lot of these albums came out around the same time, around like 2014-15. Pliny's EPs came out between 2013 and 2015 as well. So, a lot of them did take inspiration from one another. But again, like that inspiration sort of all coming out at the same time, they all blend together. So, while they are all very competent, and while, you know, this album is no different, while it is also very competent and everything, and while I do think that comparatively speaking, it does have more merit to it, because definitely at the end of the day, you do have a lot more diversity when it comes to the songs themselves, it's still not enough to make it stand out, you know, pretty much like a lot of the other ones. And I actually find it interesting because Widek, at least this album, it's definitely not as popular as perhaps some of the other works that I already covered here, like For Giants, for example, right? So that is definitely interesting to witness, when in reality I feel that this is actually much better than a lot of those albums. So on that note, I think I'm gonna leave it here. I was thinking about something, and then I was like, oh, I'm not gonna say it, and you know, and now I just kind of forgot, and yeah, like I had, I guess, a brain fart moment there. Anyway, I guess that brings me like to the vibe meter, and in terms of vibe, honestly, I don't know. I'm digging a very strong 8, maybe even 9. I think that's like in the middle there, right? So let's call it a 9 out of 10 and call it a day, right? 9 out of 10, call it a day. At the end of the day, I did say that this to me was more competent than the other albums of the genre of these types. So, you know, if I gave them 8, I gotta give this one a 9, I guess. Sure, you know, vibe wise. But yes, that's pretty much for this album, and I don't know how many of these I have anymore, because again, YouTube just recommends me a lot of stuff. I don't listen to it, I just put it on my list, and then I go listen to it, and I'm like, oh wait, this is more of the same. So I don't know how many of these there are on my list, definitely, but tomorrow I should have something a little bit different at least. But yes, I'll actually see you tomorrow with a new album review.